I enjoy that moment, and I'm going to share that moment because it was beneficial for me. And if you like it or not, honestly, like, you can suck my toe on a salty summer day. Like, that's how I...
Hello.
Welcome.
Or welcome back
to the Womanly Podcast,
where we embrace womanhood in its entirety. From the hard and awkward conversations
to the silly and embarrassing moments.
An effort to reclaim and redefine what it means to be womanly in this crazy, wacky world. I'm Delana, the neutral one.
I'm Katie, the morbid one.
And I'm Madeline, the other one. And we're so excited that you've joined us today because there's room for you at our table.
So, grab your favorite drink and let's have a conversation.
Okay, so ladies, what are we drinking tonight?
Well, I'm having a sweet tea from Chick-fil-A.
Love that. Kind of toggling, a little margy, a little Starbucksy. It's a very complex drink. It's like 16. When it's 16 lines long, it's good.
Ooh, give it to me.
Tia, you're one of those.
Only at Starbucks. If I go to a local shop, I'm like, I would like a vanilla latte with oat milk and cinnamon. But it's kind of similar. It's the venti ice, toasted vanilla, oat milk, shaken espresso, heavens. That's not part of the drink title. But it's got caramel swirled and a little cinnamon on top.
Girl.
Yeah.
Sounds so good.
But they didn't make it right. That's why you see the struggle happening because
I can tell you're kind of struggling.
A little more oat milk than espresso.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am drinking a Hatch chili margarita. If you watched our Halloween episode, then you'll know because we all drank Hatch chili margaritas with Skittles in them.
Yes. When we were just like little by little throwing a Skittle in there.
Yeah.
Cute.
Well, guys, by the way, we've got a guest today. This is my good friend Tia. We've known each other for about 3 years or more.
I think
before
so.
Bryce and I got married.
Yeah.
From church.
Yep.
And I just love her, and we're so happy to have her today.
Me
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
we have a question that we ask all of our guests, and it's in reference to our episode 0.
Yeah.
So our question to you is, who do you think you are?
Oh God.
No wrong answers.
No wrong answers.
Depends on the day and hour.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm pretty, I'm pretty, period. That's
Yeah.
it.
Amen, sister.
You are.
Yes, she is.
Oh, who am I? Yeah, I just, I don't want to be long-winded, so I apologize in advance if I become the whole, instead of long story short story long.
Mm-hmm. That's me, so don't even worry about it, sister friend.
So I listened to this podcast a couple years ago, and they were interviewing a 16-year-old girl. I do not remember her name, but her mother had passed suddenly. Her mom was 35, had passed. And 35. By the time they interviewed her, the girl was 16. I don't know the age.
Gotcha.
You follow?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And the interviewer was asking the little girl, oh, who are you? She was so she was listing out all the things she's done at 16. I was I am not caught up on life.
You're okay, Kylie Jenner.
pretty much. And at the end, she lists all these things, and the girl says, but what I do is not who I am. So
what?
16 years
Spitting
old.
Straight fire.
Yeah. So I really took that because, all your Instagram bios and MySpace layouts, for those who know MySpace. And I remember thinking about that, and I was dang, so what I do is not who I am. So who am I? So I've had to learn that. And Katie knows, I went through a very deep therapy process where I gutted 27 years of my life.
Dang.
So good. And I was who am I? And I just realized that I am just a girl. I like to really be proud about this. I am a Black girl just navigating life.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to love, I know I'm a girl who loves coffee. I'm a girl who likes, Maverick City music at 8 a.m. and then Lizzo at 8:15 a.m. We got to switch it up every now and then. I've just learned to attempt to embrace myself. So whether it's weight insecurity. So I'm just a beautiful girl headed to her 30s and just
Girl,
what
life.
a beautiful answer. Oh my God.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're so happy to
good.
have you.
So
Thanks,
excited
guys.
you're here. Yeah.
Yay.
Oh my God. Yeah. This is going to be such a good episode. All right. So in light of today's topic, which is loving yourself, our check-in question, which we like to check in with each other in a creative way every single week. So our check-in question today is, what have you done in the past week, as in 7 days, to love yourself? Who wants to go first?
I was like, so good.
You need some time to think.
Marinate, you know.
Yeah, this was my idea, and I don't have a question. I don't have an answer for this. Well, I guess in the past week, specifically in the past week, if we're talking in the last 7 days, I have allowed myself to nap a lot, and I tend to just like be like a go person, like get all the laundry done, clean our room, I don't know, do whatever's
like
on
nap
my
when
to
it's
do.
all done.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
nap when it's all done. Well, when it's all said and done, my husband's coming home. It's dinner time, like,
Yeah.
and then we spend our free time together. So this week has just been like one of those really mentally and physically tiring weekends or weeks, and you can tell what's on my mind is the weekend. But yeah, so I've just been like, those things can wait. I really just need to lay down and just close my eyes for a little bit. And if I get those things done, great. If I don't, that's okay too.
So I marinated.
Okay.
Got to answer. So something my therapist told me in one session or another, I can, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, I can like either be really, really high or like super tanked. And so she was like, you just have to pick the one thing that like, you know, you need to do regardless of what's going on. Like take that time to just do it because it's replenishing for me. And I was like, well, that's normally expensive because it involves like something ridiculous like shopping on Amazon or just shopping, period. Because plus size like has expanded. So I was like, ooh, what's new kind of thing. But for me, it's like getting my nails done this week. Like I was so excited.
Girl, your nails are so cute.
Thanks. I'm really proud of them.
The cutest. I need a close up now that I'm closer.
I know. Okay, well, don't look at the cuticles, but
okay.
they're there.
Okay.
You know,
I won't look at them.
So I've just learned, because I'm so ridiculously creative, that this is so fun for me. So like I'll Pinterest all day and I'm like, and so I meet my nail artist who's also a friend of mine, and I'm like, let's just collab. And so she came up with the cute little spiders, and then like all the other stuff was like Pinterest inspired. And so like that is what I had to do this week, because like just all the other life things that were going on, I was like, if I don't center into something, like I knew I was gonna spiral. Yeah, I knew I would spiral if I didn't like get that. I even canceled a physical therapy appointment. I was like, I am getting
you
my
gotta
nails
do
done
what you gotta do.
Yeah.
all day.
Priorities.
So, number one.
Yes. Sometimes really though, I'm like, I've done that too, where I have so many things to do and I'm like, no, I'm getting my nails done. Like it's just is happening because that's the only thing that's going to make me feel sane right now.
Yeah, it's
going to help me
together.
keep my sanity together.
Yeah. I love doing things for myself that make me feel put together when I feel like I'm actually falling apart.
Yeah,
100%. My room is a disaster right now, and I'm like, but the nails.
Yeah, like the other day I walked into work fully dressed, like head to toe, and my boss was like, oh my gosh. She said to her little girl, Miss Katie dressed up for us today. And I was like, well, sometimes you just have to do stuff that makes you feel good when you are falling apart.
Yes, 100%.
I feel like I've been loving myself in the challenging ways this week. Like I have been letting the many words that my therapist has given me over the 8 years that I've seen him replay in my head during these times where like I've had some stuff like really not go according to plan in the past week, and I was just his words would come to my mind and I would be like, okay, like I know that this has nothing to do with me, and this like says nothing about my personal worth and my personal value, how much people like me or don't like me or whatever. Like it hasn't, like I was making an intentional effort to like separate myself from the things that didn't go according to plan, like separating my personal value from the things that didn't go according to plan and not just feel like a total failure
Oh, yeah.
over the smallest little things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I get that.
And then I've also been pushing myself in other ways because we did just, as of when we're recording this, we just released an episode on me kind of sharing a big epiphany that I had.
Mhm.
And I have been continuing to challenge myself that whenever I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I challenge myself to like do the little things that I would usually put off. And so it's just, I challenge myself and I tell myself like, you can do these things and you will be okay. Like this,
Yeah.
this doesn't have to be a suffocating task. This doesn't have to be a mountain, you know, it can just be a little task that you do in 5 minutes or less. And that's all it has to be.
Yeah.
And I just have, I feel like I'm proud of myself because I feel
Proud
like
of you.
done
Yeah.
really well this past week in
Yes.
face of a lot of things that would have otherwise made me
Yeah.
feel like totally off my rocker.
Yes.
So
Go listen to Delena's episode. It was really special that she just felt really comfortable to share that epiphany with us. And I'm sure it's going to touch many of your hearts. So please go listen to it.
we'll link it in the description
Yeah.
So that it's easy for you guys to access.
we will.
But
Awesome.
yeah. Well, speaking of loving yourself, so I think we should just start with what are the ways that we have personally struggled to love ourselves?
Yeah. My whole life feels like that. I think I briefly said it a second ago, like the whole plus size portion, like clothes are like broadening and stuff like that. Growing up, always a chubby little girl, loved it. And I think going into high school and like going into college, I was like, man, I don't like the way I look. Like it was very heavy, like the way I looked, what I looked like, my hair, which I love my hair now, but getting through like, you know, puberty, adulting, going into your 20s, everything you thought you knew like years prior just are so far away that you're almost having to like either you're taking on what people tell you is who you are and your definition of or their definition of, or it's like the complete opposite. And so like for me, I think I found it hard to love myself and like seeking my value in a sense. Like I thought I was defined by like, ooh, all the boys, like to be totally transparent, if I like slept with another guy, I was like, ooh, I wonder like how much more that's gonna define me of who I am. You know, thinking that more of that would answer like what does love look like for me. Like, and you know, then there was like body shaming that came with that. And so I just feel like all through like college and like early 20s, I think that was like my literal like constant repeat and like poor habit. Like, you know, your therapist's like, oh, we got to learn to break those habits. And I'm like, I don't feel like cracking that nut right now. Like, it's just not on my to-do list. That's too much, too hard. Yeah. So it was just like for so long, I think I resided, like I literally like pitched tent and like, oh, like maybe I'll figure out how to love myself like through that. And then no definition or like no answer was found. It was just this like constantly unknowing and do I even like the way I look? Can I even achieve the things I want to achieve? All because of like these little bits in life that I decided to choose, you know?
Yeah.
But loving yourself is like really hard. And then there's some days like the last 2 days, I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. You know, like I don't feel like it. Like, and loving when you deal with like mental health within that, like depression and like trying to love yourself, it really comes to those days of like, am I gonna get up and shower?
Yeah.
Like, do I feel like it?
Totally.
And a lot of times the answer is no.
Is
I
no.
care?
Yeah. And so I feel like
do I care that other people care?
Yeah, no.
Flat out, I was like, we finna pull up in church and we finna hallelujah our way through this. But I mean, I it's so great that we're talking about this because I battled like that the whole boy portion is definitely like a heavy part of that for me, like understanding how to love myself without the necessity of like a touch or an affection or a feeling from the opposite sex.
Yeah.
But then like I get to church Sunday. I'm like, oh yeah, these songs are gonna be so good. Like, and then all of a sudden, I was just up in here, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to sing. I can't do this. I wasn't meant to say this. I shouldn't be standing up here. And and it was like everything that could have gone wrong in that situation to make me believe how I was currently feeling went wrong for me to keep myself residing in that exact same pit of crud I was thinking about. It was like, it wasn't even like really good heavy cement. It was like crumbly cement that's much harder to get out of. You know what I'm talking about? Like if you're, good foundation. That's so cliche. Good foundation.
No, I love that.
You just get over the ledge.
Yeah, you just climb right over. Yeah. No, I was like digging and crawling. Yeah. And like all rehearsal, I was like, this was me and my mic. I was like, and they're like, we need you to be louder. And I was like, oh. And it's just like... like full retreating in yourself, and then you're wrestling this friction and this pull and tug and trying to come out the cement but being dragged back down and being like, do I love myself right now where for sure I've called to be at this morning, but I'm just rather sit and reside and just feel pity. So I think that's like my really long definition of like loving yourself, but I think that
like struggling to makes, I think a lot of people will relate to that. Seriously. What about you, Katie?
I think it's definitely a struggle to love yourself.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
It's easy. What are you talking about?
Just a tad. Yeah. It's nothing like loving your partner. Like,
wow, that's a good point.
You're not, because loving your partner is like you are in love with them. Loving yourself is a completely different type of love. So it's hard to navigate sometimes because you're like, I don't know, like what that looks like. Yeah. And I think the thing that I've struggled with most is just like not feeling worthy enough to be here, or like, that's been a real struggle for me, and it's not getting any better. It's just like, to be honest.
Yeah. Your body changes
Katie's
when you get older, Katie.
Help me.
Help. Oh, no. And I think just like believing lies people have told to me in the past, they come to haunt you, and like, that's really hard to navigate. Rumors about yourself, all those things sort of bubble up to the surface, and sometimes you just like start to believe them too, and that's really hard. The struggle to love myself, and also understand that love is a practice, not a destination. You will always be like trying to love yourself. And that's kind of hard to wrap our minds around, because it's like a little bit of a big task. It's like choosing to love yourself.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. Because, and it's not just for yourself. It's like for your friends and your family. Because like if you don't love yourself, how are you going to understand to love somebody else? Right. It's like... the more you learn to love yourself, the better you're going to learn to love those around you.
I like how you said choosing, because like choosing was a process, choosing a drink from Starbucks, or like choosing what bread you're going to buy out of the aisle this week, or like choosing, oh my God, do I want oat milk or do I want almond milk? But you have to like, you pause and you think about it. You think about it. You weigh the whatever you weigh, and then you, in some ways, take a risk on the choice, right? And hoping it just works out. And then half the time you're like, oh, that didn't go as planned. That was a horrible choice, is what we think too in loving ourselves, I feel like, as well. Because like after all that thinking, which I'm an overthinker, you're like, oh, I don't think that was a good idea of loving myself today, or like maybe that wasn't the best way to love myself, or should I have done that, should I not have done that? Then that toggle comes and buckle up.
I think asking yourself, like, how can I love myself today? What's the best way that I'm going to feel loved today by myself?
Yeah.
Is also a hard question to ask, but one that I think we need to practice, you know?
Yeah, because I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like you just
You just shattered her world a little bit.
Yeah. Like eyes are just
roll back.
She's like, now I'm thinking about it right now, so
like,
I need to brew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Caitlin, our friend Caitlin came on the episode how we discovered and are discovering our self-worth in our 20s. It was a good one. That girl is so wise. I can't even.
She is.
But so Caitlin, if you're listening, we love you. Shout out. She talked about how the first step, it like the thought of loving yourself is like so big sometimes. It's like almost overwhelming where it's like, I hate myself so much. I'm in so much self-contempt. How do I even, it just seems like a distant like pipe dream, you know?
Right.
And she talked about how like, it's okay to not have the goal of like needing to actively love yourself, but that you can just have the goal of like just being neutral and okay with yourself first.
Yes.
Like
baby steps.
Yeah. So for me, I personally, oh Lord, the layers of ways that I have struggled to love myself. I think that it first started with an immense struggle with social anxiety. I really, really struggled to make friends in which every time somebody meets me, they're like, what? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Okay. I was very, very socially anxious. Like people would just be confused around me. They would be like, I don't understand. I would be like, me either. I don't understand. And I think that people just thought that I was like really awkward. But for me, I was like extremely socially anxious.
Yeah.
And I didn't have sleepovers for like 2 years because I was like 13, 14 years old, you know, and I was
it's
just
like prime time for sleepovers.
Prime time for sleepovers, dude. You're supposed to start sneaking out and stuff like that at that age.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't even make a friend close enough to have a sleepover with.
Doing the Airbud thing where they go spy on their brother at the party.
Gosh,
exactly. Yeah. So I really struggled to make like real friends, and I had a lot of like surface level acquaintances and stuff like that, but not any like real friends. So that's where I really started to feel like, oh my gosh, there's something like foundationally wrong with me. And then that eventually spiraled into crippling depression, which then, and the anxiety just like morphed over the years where it's like, I found some ways to like cope socially, you know, but the social anxiety didn't really get better. Like it did eventually, but it more so just like morphed into different forms, you know?
Yeah.
And anxiety kind of like, and I think a lot of that, if I'm really honest, I just like disassociated. Like I was just like disconnected from reality. And it felt like I was like watching life from the outside looking in, and that I wasn't even like fully, I wasn't really connected to my own life, is how it felt for a really long time. Yeah, so then I got married eventually, and that changed a lot it exposed a lot more areas where I was like, oh, I didn't realize how insecure I was, reliant on other people to fulfill this side of me. And that really honestly exposed a lot of my physical, what am I trying to say? Body dysmorphia, but like that's rooted in self-contempt and not loving yourself and stuff like that. So a lot of body dysmorphia and eating disorders and things like that I began to struggle with. Yeah, so that's been the whole kind of journey for me. There's been a lot of ways that not loving myself has kind of planted its cute little roots in my life, and poked a lot of holes and things like that. And but thankfully I have gone to a lot of therapy and
love therapy
have found
so much.
I know and have found ways to move outside of that and begin to love myself. So what are the ways that we have learned to now love ourselves? And I like what you said, how you said it's like a practice, because I feel like everything that we're about to talk about is all like, it's not like we have arrived at
You'll never
our
arrive.
final form.
It's like we've landed, but like in a spirit airplane. Like, you know those horror stories about spirits? Like that's how our landing is, just like really rough, busted kneecaps. The overhead has clunked out and stuff's falling out. Like that's how we've landed. I don't think that's how a real spirit flight is. I've never taken one, but Twitter tells me the whole story. So I think I've learned to love myself, and this is much recent, is with boundaries. I think
Amen.
I have loved them. I love them so much. I've loved them so much. Before, I was like, yeah, absolutely, sign me up, totally. And not realizing that all the things I could have been saying yes to were like an actual benefit to me. I was just a people pleaser. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I was signing up for, whatever I was doing was like in the benefit of like someone else, but like not myself. And so, because I started out like very young in ministry and like just ran that horse dry, and then did 5 weeks of therapy, realizing like, oh my God, who am I without ministry? Like, what does that definition look like?
And the Christian church tends to perpetuate the idea of like
self-love,
of not
serve others before yourself.
Yes,
and if you do anything for yourself, it's like
sin.
Condemnation.
Exactly.
Right
How
to
dare you? Yeah, like sit down. You can't even
straight to hell.
Yeah. And so I think coming out of that, I've like definitely loved boundaries, and it became more evident in my current work journey. I think that, you know, you're taught in any like segment of life, like the more you do, the better it looks, the more recognized you are, then you have accolades and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna do that work. I'm just gonna like serve because this is where like God's called me, and this is gonna allow me to like get to that position. But then you think and you're like, oh my God, I've been running on E for like 6 to 9 months. And I don't know why I'm so super depressed, overeating, can't sleep, this and that, blah blah blah, dry skin, like all the things that comes with it. And
what could it be?
God, I can't find out. And my therapist's like, it's called boundaries. And I've just loved them, and it's allowed me to love my space. Like I love it so much. And this is recent. This isn't like something that's just like spurred out. Like I'm reading a book called Boundaries.
Love it.
It's so good. And it's just, it's really shaped my brand on like, oh yeah, like saying no to this isn't like disrespecting anybody. It's not hurting anyone's feelings. If anything, it's helping me get through the day by not saying yes to something I definitely can't even mentally wrap my brain around, like capacity wise, because today I came in thinking I'm going to do these these X, Y, and Z task. And if I have something else, okay, I'll add it to my list, but like there's always tomorrow. So I've loved to learn who I'm becoming with boundaries, because I think I'm now learning like, oh, I'm saying no because I respect myself. Oh, I'm saying no because this is benefit for me. And I'm no longer thinking of the other person on the other side, not like being disingenuous, but like, okay, like, yeah, that sounds great, but like, how is that going to replenish me at the end of the day if all I've come in with is doing X, Y, and Z? So I love boundaries. Best friend, hashtag that, and all the things. Like I love boundaries.
I am working on boundaries in therapy. In fact, she said last week, she was like, we need to work on boundaries. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm open to that. Like, cool, I'm ready. So that's something I'm working on in terms of loving myself. But one of the ways that I love on myself, especially lately, is recognizing when my cup is full and giving myself the grace to lean with it. That's just not been an easy thing for me. In the past, I've always just wanted to say yes, 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 and just like give all myself until I'm just like run ragged. It's kind of what you guys have been talking about as well. And then piggybacking on top of that, also learning to say no when I need to and not feeling guilty about it, is just a few of the ways that I am practicing loving myself. I think it's cool that like all of our answers sort of gravitate in the same manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I hope that people out there, I mean, I'm sure they will relate
Yeah.
to us on this. But yeah.
I think that the like resistance of like, oh my God, how do I say no? You
Yeah.
know, I think it's two things actually. One, you have not fully recognized yet that whenever you say yes to something, you are also saying no to something else at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you say yes to a family member, you're also saying no to maybe that mental break that you need, or
Yeah.
you know, going to get your nails done or whatever
Yeah.
the heck you need to love yourself and take care of yourself at that moment. Whenever you overcommit yourself to other things, you have to realize that there is a no behind your yes every single time you say yes.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I think that there's also a belief behind that like you don't really believe yet that whenever you say no to something, you don't really believe that that's like good. That that's a good thing for you to do yet.
Yeah.
And that it's not about how they react. It's about like what's objectively good in this moment for you and your mental health or your physical health or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that, or maybe your relationships. Like I know people that they'll overcommit themselves to family members or friends or something like that. And then it affects their marriage.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was going to say just a minute ago. This past weekend, we had a family event, an extended family event we were supposed to go to. And all day I was just like, I don't feel like it, but I don't want to not go because I feel bad not going, but I really don't feel up to it, but we're going to go anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bryce and I were just like not feeling it. And I said no. I text my dad and I said, Bryce and I will not be there tonight. Please send them our love. And Bryce and I really needed quality time together. We had a rough week and rough week and like a busy weekend. This was on Sunday night. And we just went out to eat together and got coffee and like spent the rest of the night together. And that is what we needed so bad. That's like what we needed for ourselves and our relationship.
Yeah.
And that's truly like the first time I've said no to like my family in like a really long time. Right after I said no, like my dad's response was a little bit sad. And I was like, I can't go back on my word.
Yeah.
But like I was almost in tears because I was like, I want to spend all my time with him, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we have boundaries, right? And your dad responded with being sad, like your dad's emotions as a reminder, I'm not dissing on like family or your father, is we are not meant to carry that burden post that response. Yes. And so when we find that we're not meant to carry the burden of someone else's emotions post our boundaries. Like I love my mom and my sister. I live with them. They're my best roommates I could potentially ask for. I'm joking. I love them. But every time I'm out, like I'm leaving work because I finally got my own car. Guys, what a journey that was. And every time I'm like, just because I'm out, hey, are you passing Brahms? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, can you stop getting ice cream? And I'm really like, no, I'm not stopping. I am tired. Just because I'm driving past the Brahms doesn't mean I want to stop for the Brahms. Doesn't mean I want to pay for the Brahms. And y'all been home all day. And all of a sudden, when I'm taking my 20-minute drive home, now you want Brahms. Yeah. And they were like, well, you're out all day going to Target. That's different. Okay. Like
that is different.
That's different.
And so as small and silly as that sounds, talking about like Target and ice cream and all that stuff, like it's true. Like I had to do that for my own protection. Like I'm tired. I want to go home. Yeah. I've just been in physical therapy for an hour. Being in a drive-through for 20 minutes for an ice cream scoop is not really on my plate. Like my plate is to be home in my bed and maybe turn on Netflix or YouTube, but I just need to be home and decompress from the day.
Yeah.
You know? And
that is totally something that was one of the hardest things for me whenever it comes to boundaries and loving yourself is that is starting to treat like those types of things, just simple doing nothing, quote unquote, to treat that as an appointment. Like
Ooh.
to treat that
Yes.
as important as like, no, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm busy
Yeah.
doing
Oh my
nothing,
gosh.
but I'm busy.
Yeah, and it doesn't
because
have to
I
be-
need
sorry.
this, because I'm going to go insane without this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
And you don't have to post about it. Like you were talking about how you missed out on a family thing and then y'all went out. I did that too. Like so many people have been getting married this season. I'm like, I love every one of you so much, but it's overwhelming, especially as a single person. Like you're like, oh yay, we get to celebrate someone else, and like the ring is gone again. And there's days where I'm like, I cannot brut the social capacity of that. I cannot brut that. But I'm gonna go and like sit at a park. I love going to coffee shops. I'm gonna go sit at a coffee shop, and I don't have to post it. You know, like that. That's something that you
Katie
remember.
said invite me.
Yeah, I know. It's guys, I have a whole note page on my phone about coffee shops, but you know,
Amazing.
it's always crazy because I'm like, oh my God, can I even post what I did today? Like, because someone's gonna be like, well, she said no to this. So then you then begin to care about what other people think. I'm like, and
Carry
you
the
don't-
burden.
You carry the burden, and you're like, but I'm like, no, I enjoyed that time. I'm going to share that time.
Yes.
Not only benefit anyone else, but like, well, one, my content on how I film videos on the coffee shop are fantastic. But two, it's like, I enjoy that moment, and I'm going to share that moment because it was beneficial for me. And if you like it or not, honestly, like, you can suck my toe on a salty summer day. Like, that's how I...
Can we all just
10
like,
out of 10, the best joke.
can we all just like collectively decide, everybody listening, everybody at this table, collectively decide that like, if our friends tell us that they're busy and then we see them post about how they're alone at a coffee shop, can we like root for them and be like, way to
good for
protect your
you.
time, girlfriend.
100%.
So proud of you.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I carried the burden for about 5 minutes, and then I was like, it's okay. We're going to go out.
Proud of you for that.
And it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And sometimes you have to do that. Like we have to be like, okay, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to be okay. If I just do this one little event that I'm really not feeling up for, like I'm going to be okay. The problem resides in whenever you do that every single time where you're like, no, I'm just going to do it anyways. It's like, no, don't keep doing it anyways, girl. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Give yourself a
100%.
break. One of the things that I noted in loving yourself that I feel like is so important and is a very challenging thing to do is working through and letting go of the limiting beliefs that you carry. Meaning that could be limiting beliefs that you carried through via your childhood, what you learned from your parents, what you learned from your religion, limiting beliefs that are just like you don't really maybe know where they came from. They're just there, you know. But like things like I'm not capable of doing something, whatever that may be. Like in the journey of loving yourself well, you will fail. You'll fail yourself.
Yeah.
You might fail other people. You might
Yeah.
say you might get a text message from your father and being like, should I say no to this event? And you say no. And then later you're like, you know what? I probably should have gone to that event. And that may feel like a failure on your end, but it's all just in the journey of learning how to love yourself. And that is part of it. I really do feel like that is a crucial part of all human endeavors, but also especially in learning how to love yourself.
They should put that on job applications a little more. We accept 6 years of failure. Sign me up.
Yes. What things have you failed at? Well,
Yeah.
let me tell you.
Yeah.
Too many to
Wanna
count.
start with-
Honestly,
Yeah.
it honestly should be.
Right?
It
a
honestly
question.
should. It shows humility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next thing that I wrote down in terms of loving yourself is what Caitlin said in that. I'm just going to quote Caitlin the whole time. What Caitlin said, she made this really beautiful quotable line where she said, everything should be done kind, gentle, slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is our motto, by the way. I
It
know.
is.
Cry your little eyes out. Cry your little eyes out right now.
Oh Oh my God.
Because it is so true. And that has been one of the hardest parts, because sometimes whenever we take on endeavors of like loving ourselves, for example, we're like, all right, I'm going to love myself.
And it's going to be hard, fast.
It's going to be hard, fast,
sweaty,
better, faster, stronger, you know, and I'm going to punch some walls down and stuff like that. And it's like, whoa. What if, I'm going to get real Christian on you guys for a second. What if it is more like Jesus? Like, what if it is kind, gentle, slow? You know, like, what if that is what loving yourself actually looks like?
Yeah.
Where it's like baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah.
Where it's like baby steps in these tiny, and having a lot of grace, and having and being okay with results not coming fast, you know, but results coming a little bit at a time over a long period of time.
Oh, I totally just, the quickest thing that came to my mind was like delayed gratification with that. So in like the buying car experience, the whole kind, gentle, slow, I didn't know how to do that. I know like car buying is like not a love yourself process, but I had to learn to like be okay with where I was at in getting a car. It was a year and a half. I had to share with my mom. I heard myself saying like, you can never save that much money. And I saved the money for shocked myself, and just did a lot of prayer and crying though. Oh my God. The times where I was like, when I tell you like a peak of tunnel vision, I was like, that light is looking real dim from this angle. And now that I have the car, I'm like battling the part of like, oh my God, am I even worth having this car? Like literally I'll drive it. And I'm like, it's going to get taken away. Cause like my first car was like repoed that I bought. And so I'm like, they're going to take it out the drive again. I'm going to totally mess it up. And it's just like, that's a whole different thing I'm battling now, is like not understanding the worth, but like holding on to like, I am worthy of this. Like that's hard. I think that's why I had to buy the like you are enough reminder, and like my little Etsy wood chip says like, be still and know that I am God. And I'm like, I'm trying so hard.
When you said like kind, gentle, slow, it just, the first thing I thought of is just like the season I'm in, and that I really do need to be like kind, gentle, and slow with myself and with my husband and the whole process.
Yeah.
Loving yourself is so complex. Like there's it feels like I gotta eat the whole cake or bite the elephant in one bite, or whatever the phrases are out there. But it just takes time, and it's not gonna be everything at once. And I think when you look at the ways of loving yourself, you have to like remember it's just gonna be baby steps and one day at a time. It can't all happen at once. Totally. That is something my therapist said. She was like, well, you can't do everything. And I looked at her like, excuse me? Like I felt like it was a challenge, because I was like, I am going to, but then you literally run yourself into that. You run yourself into a ditch. Yeah. Something like
run yourself into the ground.
There it is. Yeah. Very simpler said. I'm like, a ditch? What's that? But it is like that. You have to learn to just, it is one thing at a time, and it just can't all be accomplished in this, oh, I know how to love myself, and then you get in the checks mix. Yeah, the checks mix bag, guys. The checkbox mentality. And sometimes that can do the full opposite of what you're trying to achieve.
Totally.
And failure is okay if you do that too. So,
So the last bullet point that I had for this was that I feel is one of the most important. Everything we've said here is very important. But I feel like one of the most important, especially in just starting the journey, is letting go and creating boundaries, or creating boundaries. I guess letting go of somebody is creating boundaries, but letting go of the people who cloud your judgment the most.
Yeah.
Because the people that are just constantly in your head and like making you question, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I crazy? Am I not? You know, those are usually the people where it's like, okay, time to put some space in between you and them.
Right.
Whether that is indefinite space of like, hey, we are going to have no contact for an indefinite amount of time. I have people in my life where I have gone no contact with them, where I haven't had contact with my dad in almost 10 years, and which that is obviously a really big one for an immediate a parent, you know, that was one of the hardest things. To kind of just let that relationship go. But I've had, and then I have other friends and family members where I just have, you know, we keep different distances, because if I don't, then it does cloud my judgment a lot. And I feel like, am I crazy? Am I not crazy? Like, whatever, you know? And so I do feel like if there's people that are making you question your sanity, probably need some distance between you and them.
I love that.
Yes. It's a very good point.
Yeah, I think I've done that without like thinking about it. Like
Good.
you said it, and I'm thinking back, I'm like, you know what? And it's not like I did it in a peaceful way. I just kind of like ghosted them. I think that's how they say it.
You're kind of just like,
I was like, you know, I'm just gonna slide on
I'm
back.
not interested.
Yeah.
Let me just slide on out of those DMs.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yeah. So I feel like we should do a quick little round table of like, if you had to give number one piece of advice, like a good one-liner advice on loving yourself, what would it be? You may not know what to do, but you know what not to do. That's what I feel like is like, okay, if we're starting this whole freaking journey of like loving ourselves, we may not know what exactly to do, like what the right next step is to actively love ourselves, but we definitely know what not to do. And that may be the starting point of just killing some of those hateful behaviors.
Wow. I love that. What you got, Tia?
I'm like, Katie's gonna go next.
I'll go next.
I think it's kind of like a takeaway that not selfishly I said, but also like a one-liner is like really try to find the peace and the pain when you're setting those boundaries.
That's good.
Yeah. I think that was like a really good nugget to just, it's tough and it's hard, but there's a silver lining of peace in there some way, somewhere. Yeah.
That perfection is not the prerequisite to being loved by other people or loving yourself.
Yeah, that's so good.
Wow.
That was so good.
Very.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode.
Thank you, Tia.
Thank you, Tia, for joining us. Yeah. We miss Madeline and that she didn't get to meet Tia in this episode, but we're so glad that you were here. Such a lovely, beautiful input and voice that you had here.
Yes. You've always got a seat at our table.
Always.
Always.
Yes. Thanks. So, wear your sunscreen.
Drink your water.
And be kind to yourself.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us again for this week's episode of the Womanly Podcast. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media to hang out with us in between episodes and see pieces of our conversations that we don't get to include in these episodes, plus all of our bloopery humanness. We're on Instagram at Womanly Pod and TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at Womanly Podcast. We hope to hang out with you more there. Have a super womanly week.